Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist, welcome to the channel. Have you seen this footage?
Weekend that is in any terms truly frightening. It came from a known Islamic extremist who wants to raise an army to impose Sharia law here in Australia. His message was met with raised fists and loud agreement by his followers in Lakemba. This exclusive report gives an insight into a world anti-terrorism police are urgently investigating.
They flocked to this nondescript convention centre in Western Sydney on Saturday evening. Around 200 men, another 50 women and children behind a curtain at the back, to hear speakers for extremist Muslim group Hizb ut-Tahrir call for an end to our way of life.
Eventually, we will bounce back and we will reclaim everything that they have taken from us.
Muslims attending were told Australia's Democratic...
This is how fanatical and deluded these people are. They've been given billions of dollars from the Australian government. They're into all the other government grants and things that they get from being in Australia. They siphon it all. And they're still saying that they're going to get everything back that we took. That's delusional at the least, to say the least.
The government has to go in favour of an Islamic caliphate ruled by Sharia law.
And these are the guys that are going to get Fatima payment in the end. These are the guys that are going to take over. This is what we're going to be dealt with.
We will continue to stand up and to oppose your freedom to insult our messenger.
We will continue to stand up and to oppose your freedom to insult our messenger. We don't care about their messenger. That's their business.
Freedom of speech was top of the agenda, as firebrand preacher Bilal Murhi said Australians use freedom of speech to mock Islam, but not for long.
Now they say they are brave, they have their freedom. It's here because you have no stake, you have no authority, you have no representation, they can be brave. But
now they say they are brave, they have their freedoms. Mind you, freedoms that the Anzacs fought for, we've taken all that for granted. Yeah, because you have no state, no authority, you have no representation. That's crazy. Who are they talking about? The Palestinians? Couldn't be talking about the Australians.
be brave when we have authority. Come forward when we have a representation with an army ready to defend the honor of Allah and His messenger. They will not. They will not. And
who are they? Is he talking about Australians? Come forward when we have a representation with an army. See, this is what I've said through all the videos. You can't get any sense out of these people.
that's what we have to understand.
As the only journalist present, the organisers allowed me to record audio but banned cameras. Australian law says we're allowed to film public rallies.
We do have some media present here tonight, so we do strongly encourage the audience not to engage with them.
Bilal Murhi came under police investigation last October after we aired a video of him coaching children as young as 6 to chant extremist slogans. In addition to this latest speech, we've passed on several videos to the Police Counter-Terrorism Unit and the Attorney-General.
If people are engaged in the advocacy or encouragement of terrorism, they will be arrested, they will be prosecuted, and they will be taken off our streets.
Police would not comment beyond saying they are investigating. We expect to air several more videos in coming days. Brian Seymour, 7 News.
Now I want to return to something I discussed with Senator Michaelia Cash a little bit earlier in the week, and that's the worrying influence of the radical Islamist group Hizb ut-Tahrir. Now, in other Western countries, Hizb ut-Tahrir is a listed terror organisation. It is banned, it's prohibited, but not here in Australia. It's been involved alongside pro-Palestinian protesters at Sydney Uni in striking a deal that would give them influence over decisions the university makes. Now, this situation is so concerning that today a coalition of Australia's peak Jewish groups have come together to say they've lost confidence in Sydney Uni to provide for the safety of Jews on campus, and that the organisations are, quote, ready to provide support to Jewish students and staff who now wish to leave Sydney University. For more of this, I'm joined now by Director of Strategic Analysis Australia, Michael Shoebridge. Well, Michael, we've talked about these protests and all these idiots who think the River to the Sea chant is innocuous. Are you surprised, though, that we've reached a point where we've got Jewish organisations now expecting an exodus of staff and students from Sydney Uni?
No, Peter, I'm not surprised, because what the University of Sydney seems to have done is welcome into its decision-making processes voices that are influenced by extremist Islamist groups that clearly celebrated and advocated violence, including celebrating the atrocities of the 7th of October. So you can see why giving groups influenced by those voices a seat at the table in decisions about the university makes every Jewish person fearful, anxious, and I would say more than disappointed in the University of Sydney.
You and I know that amongst the Five Eyes nations, there's a lot of information sharing. One of the Five Eyes is obviously the UK. We're another party. The UK have banned Hizb ut-Tahrir. I have absolutely no doubt the reasons why they are banned would be well communicated to our intelligence agencies. Why have Hizb ut-Tahrir not been banned here in Australia? Why is the Attorney-General refusing to list them as a terror organisation? And just take people through some of the history of Hizb ut-Tahrir.
Well, Peter, I don't think this really needs to depend on intelligence agencies between the UK and Australia talking. The real problem is that this group has publicly celebrated and revelled in the atrocities and violence committed by Hamas on the 7th of October. They called for the demise of Israel after those attacks. They celebrated Hamas's mujahideen killing and kidnapping Jewish people. And they put all this out publicly. So it's known that they have promoted and revelled in those atrocities.
So how stupid are we for putting up with it? Why are these people putting up with it? It's criminal behaviour.
So they have no place in public discourse or discussion here. They should be banned for what they have said. They are clearly celebrating and revelling in terrorist violence.
Cool reporter Cameron Redden is out at the front of Parliament House. Cam, what's going on exactly?
There's some quite extraordinary...
Okay, so why aren't these people being arrested? Would you go down to Parliament House and put all this on? Hey? Would you go down there and defy the police? Why are these people allowed to do this? What gives them the right to do this? They've breached the security. If these mugs can breach the security lines of Parliament House, what have we've got if the Chinese hit the shores of our land? None.
Ordinary protest activity that's gone on for about the last 15 minutes. We're here in the forecourt of Parliament House. I want to show you about 15 metres high on the tall marble pillars at the front of Parliament.
Look, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What's that got to do with Australia? These people need to be arrested.
House. I've counted 4 protesters who've somehow managed to climb to the top. You can hear the chanting and see some of the banners that have been hung from the very front of Parliament House. Just take a listen. This is some of the chanting that's been going on about 15 minutes now. You get a sense of the security implications here too, Leigh. Police...
I don't think these people understand how criminal this is, and I don't think we understand. They've breached... They're trespassing on Parliament House.
On the forecourt here of Parliament, there are still some visitors entering the front of Parliament at the moment, still open to the public at this stage. These massive banners being hung on the last day of Parliament of this sitting session, the day that we are expecting, or, well, maybe not today, but in coming days, the defection of Senator Fatima Payman, a Labor senator who's...
Why aren't they getting them down? Why are they just standing there looking at them?
The floor. She's found herself, in her own words, exiled from her party for supporting a motion to recognise Palestine that was put forward by the Greens. You can see one protester in particular now dangling his legs off the marble pillars here at the front of Parliament, about 15 metres or so high in the air. I've counted 4 that are up there. They've been there for 15 minutes or so now. Somehow have managed to scale this frontal part of Parliament House.
Could you imagine if that was in America, if that was the White House? Gosh, we're weak.
As I say, they're one now dangling their legs. Police have slowly gathered in this forecourt area. Some people walking past have now stopped to watch as well. At this stage, there haven't been any direct attempts to try and bring them down, more so to just secure the area and to keep people away from these pillars for now, Leigh. As I mentioned, this chanting has been going...
The US, imperial, hegemonic and capital interests you devote yourself to.
Barry,
if you wanted to climb to the top of Parliament House, how would you... I mean,
yeah,
do you think you could do it?
Do that?
Is it so easy?
Look, I don't think I'm quite that athletic, Leigh. Obviously, this is a dangerous situation. You can see... One person's just reading off their phone now, continuing some of the chanting here. Some of them are wearing balaclavas, or what appears to be at least facial coverings.
Do you think this is acceptable?
Let's have a little listen to this, Leigh.
Imperialist and settler colonial violence. This 4th of July, we draw attention to the sub-imperial role Australia fulfills in its obstitious subservience to the US empire. Many of the war crimes committed and enabled by Australia have been carried out under US imperialism and of its own exploitative capitalist interests at home and abroad.
And what's
on this occasion of blood incarceration and state-sanctioned murder? 1918, we have a long and sordid in this capital, placing 1.7 million people, and the wretched legacy of every Australian government.
Right now to those disgraceful scenes out of Canberra, where 4 war memorials quite close to the Australian National War Memorial have been vandalised. This is the war memorials for the people that gave their lives for the freedom that we have and that these people have been invited into. With pro-Palestinian messages. Now, this is the 3rd time since March that this area has been targeted by vandals, by Muslim vandals. Not Chinese vandals, not American vandals, not Australian vandals, Muslim vandals. Police yet to lay any charges. For more, I'm joined now by former Afghan soldier, now veteran, of course, federal LNP member for the seat of Herbert, Phil Thompson. Phil, thank you for your time. What on earth goes through your mind when you see vandalism on sacred monuments like this?
I start with anger. I'm furious, and then I landed with I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that people within Australia think that this is acceptable. We have people in Canberra and around the country who are desecrating our most sacred sites. We have people that have paid the ultimate sacrifice, killed in battle, killed in war, for people to have that freedom of speech and expression to now think that it's okay to vandalise the Australian War Memorial and our most sacred war memorials around the nation. I think it's disgraceful. It's hurtful to the families. It's hurtful.
It is. This is the point. Very well spoken, Philip Thompson.
Everyone that's worn the uniform, and I'm absolutely disappointed in us as a nation that we are not condemning this much harder and much faster and putting these people in front of a court system because that's where they belong.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, just on that point about freedom of speech, I mean, I think it's a cheap shot for these protesters to say that this is freedom of speech. They've got countless ways to demonstrate and speak out for their pro-Palestinian, in some case pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic bile. They've got plenty of opportunities to do that. But this is vandalism, this is property damage, this is desecration, as you say. But what stumps me, these are 4 monuments over the weekend. The 3rd such time since March we've seen this damage done, but there has not been a charge laid by the police. How come?
I wouldn't dare do it.
These scumbags should be in cuffs. I think it's that simple. The police need to bolster their numbers and the investigation for this to take place, because this is criminal activity, this is criminal behaviour, and it should not be accepted, and we shouldn't be seeing several month delays in getting these people in handcuffs and before a court system.
100%.
Canberra's wall-to-wall CCTV. I mean, this is a really prominent avenue. I don't buy that there's not some sort of footage of people there at the site.
I'm imagining there would be, and I'd like to see tougher language come out of our political leadership out of Canberra and around the country. We saw today more weak leadership and weak words from the Prime Minister, where he said that Israelis and Palestinians, they all say from the river to the sea, which is incorrect. People who say from the river to the sea are Hamas, which is a terrorist group and terrorist sympathisers. This is not good enough. We need to see action. We need to see our leadership stand up and go, we will not put up with this anymore. Let's bolster these numbers. I want people in handcuffs by an end date, because people around the country, our servicemen and women, don't deserve to be seeing this horrendous stuff been happening at our most sacred sites.
One of Australia's most sacred sites defaced in a deplorable act of vandalism. A bleak message smeared on the heritage walls of the...
That is just... Can't you see what they're doing? They've got no respect.
Australian War Memorial. In 100 years, do you want there to be a Gaza memorial?
It's disgraceful. It's a disgusting act.
A hooded man with his face covered captured on security footage walking away from the scene about 1 o'clock this morning. Police say he is responsible.
We're very disappointed to see that a national institute in Canberra, which holds a very significant place to many of us in Australia, has been vandalised, and we're very ashamed that this has happened.
The offensive act condemned not only by police, the War Memorial director saying, "I'm saddened by graffiti which desecrated the heritage building overnight. The memorial's purpose is to commemorate the sacrifice of those Australians who have died in war."
Just want to say, viewers, this is how they treat where they come from. It's no different. Everything's wrecked, ruined, broken.
This from RSL Australia. People are entitled to protest, but the defilement of a memorial to those who served, suffered and died in service is disgusting and to be deplored.
Yeah, it's a kick in the guts, absolutely. The freedoms that we enjoy are because of those brave men and women who are engraved on those walls. And to have someone do this, I think flies in the face of Australian values.
Officers are investigating if it's linked to a similar incident at the Vietnam Memorial 3 months ago, sending a strong message following months of frustration and anger that's turned into violence, with pro-Palestinian protesters targeting federal government offices across the country.
Everywhere these people go, they leave a mess behind them.
I noticed in that contribution there was not one mention of terrorism, of Hamas, or of hostages.
Order.
This is not a binary debate. I would ask the Greens political party to reflect on how they are handling this debate. I would ask them to reflect on whether this is a time where you want to make political differences about political parties, or whether this is a time where all of us as political leaders might actually need to ensure that the distress and grief that we all know is in our communities, in the Jewish community too, single loss of life since the Holocaust in any day, as well as our Palestinian, Arabic and Islamic communities. Maybe our job is not to amplify that distress. Maybe our job is not to foment division in the hope that there is some political advantage. Maybe our job as leaders is to try, and here we go again. Maybe your job as a leader is not to chant a slogan and not to amplify distress into anger and violence, which is what we have seen. Maybe our job as leaders is to ensure that we do not allow this to divide our country. And I'm entitled to respond to them, actually. And I would remind you that we have seen incidents in our community which included laying false corpses outside of MPs' offices, threatening emails and phone calls to staff in electorate offices, weaponising the imagery of deceased children, spraying fake blood on shop fronts of electorate offices. We have staff who are intimidated and threatened. And what I would say to you is your party has a responsibility, as all of us do, to not legitimise that by using inflammatory language and perpetuating untruths. Because that is what
telling the truth is not inflammatory language. Okay? No one is perpetuating untruths. Which
because
untruths?
You are asserting that we have cut funding to UNRWA.
You have suspended funding to UNRWA. That is what I have.
UNRWA was infiltrated by Hamas, who had employees in UNRWA, and they were sending the humanity aid to the Hamas. The Palestinians weren't getting the aid, Hamas was.
No.
I have doubled funding to UNRWA. We have suspended, along with many other partners, in the face of serious allegations which UNRWA itself described as serious. Now, there are two truths in relation to UNRWA. The first is it is critical. It's a critical organisation.
I'm sorry, Minister. Please answer the question. It's like you've been talking about without answering.
This is a Muslim fanatic. She's in our parliament. And she is, I don't know where she works, Sydney somewhere, I think, Illawarra or something, I don't know. But she's trying to siphon money out of the Australian government and send it to Palestine.
Answering the question for the last 10 minutes.
Okay. Minister, have you concluded your answer?
I'm trying to conclude my answer.
No, did you speak to Mr. Lazzarini before you announced the suspension of UNRWA funding? That's my question.
Is that your only question, or you've got...
I've got a few more.
Okay, all right.
We have doubled UNRWA funding.
Okay, so we won't go any further there.
What I said, we heard Malign Farouqi's disgust of Israel and what they have done to protect themselves, though their retaliation through this, they said, we've had enough. We have had a gutful of this, and now they are defending themselves. Good on them. I don't blame them. But the fact is that it's a pity that Malign Farouqi...
Senator Hanson, please refer...
Well, I'm reading from what I said. Okay, what I said.
Well, Senator Hanson...
Senator
Hanson, please resume your seat. I was not in the chamber when you made that contribution. I am in the chamber now, and I am directing you to refer to the senator by her correct name.
Well, then this is Hansard, but anyway. All right, we'll go to Senator Farouqi. Didn't look at what Pakistan did to 2 million Afghan people there. They just went in, bulldozed their homes, said, go back to Afghanistan.
Senator Hanson,
what about those people?
Senator Hanson, please resume your seat. Senator Waters.
Point of order, merely repeating what is already on the Hansard that we've all had the displeasure of reading and that we are currently complaining breaches standing orders and the Code of Conduct. Simply repeating those comments takes us no further to a solution.
Came from, so we can't criticise the Pakistanis, can we? No, not at all.
And I said, Senator Hanson, in the same way that I reminded Senator Waters, This matter is about why this matter is urgent, so I would ask you to address your comments to the urgency motion. Thank you.
Okay, so my comments reference back to what Senator Waters was saying. I said, Senator Faruqi, I will tell you again, if you don't see yourself as loving this country and abiding by the laws of the country, I have no problem. I will actually take you to the
Senator
airport.
Senator Hanson, that was a personal reflection. I'm going to.
I was going to say I'll actually take you to the airport myself and put you on a plane. She's unreal, Pauline Hanson.
Senator Hanson, that was a personal reflection. I'm going to ask you to withdraw that.
Well, that's a serious matter. Let me think about it. Let me think about it.
Order.
Look, Senator Faruqi, there's a tissue here.
Order.
For you, like.
Senator Hanson. Order. Senator Hanson, please resume your seat. You made a personal reflection. It's not up for debate. I've asked you to withdraw that, and I remind you again, you need to withdraw.
I used to make those same statements at immigration ceremonies
Senator
to people,
Hanson, please,
and they thought
Senator
it was
Hanson,
wonderful.
Senator Hanson, please resume your seat. You are not debating with me. You have made a personal reflection. It is not in accordance with the standing orders. I have asked you, I've directed you to withdraw that statement. I simply ask you to withdraw without making any further comment.
I believe I'm speaking on behalf of millions of Australians, and I won't.
Senator Hanson, please, that is a very serious matter. You have breached the standing orders. I'm asking you to take a few moments and reflect on what I've asked you, in fact what I've directed you to do, and that is to withdraw that personal reflection. It doesn't matter what you may have said outside of the chamber, but we all have to abide by the standing orders in here, including me. And you have made a personal reflection on a senator, and I ask that you withdraw those remarks.
When I expect senators in place to respect the Australian people and our laws and our
Senator
values,
Hanson.
I will.
Senator Hanson, I'm withdrawing the call.
It never gets easier to deal with racist attacks.
They're not just the pathetic hecklings of a schoolyard bully.
It hurts every time.
I'm the Senate leader. I still get triggered.
A standoff in the Senate. Australia's halls of power dragged into a wretched racism row.
I've been told to go back to where I come from hundreds of times. Senator Pauline Hanson did it a few days ago.
Senator Pauline Hanson tweeting,
"Piss off back to Pakistan."
in response to Senator Maureen Faruqi's comments after the Queen's passing.
"I cannot mourn the leader of a racist empire."
Well, why is she here? This is what I don't understand.
Yesterday rejected a move to censure Hanson.
Censuring Senator Hanson today is really the absolute bare minimum.
Instead, issuing a broad directive for more respectful debate, as Hanson doubled down.
I make the offer also to take her to the airport.
Senator Steele-John, if you are in the chamber, you will listen in silence. Order.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Late yesterday, Senator Faruqi referred Hanson's comments to the Australian Human Rights Commission. The One Nation founder adamant she's no racist.
This is blatant reverse racism, and I'm calling it out. I refuse to acknowledge the fact that I have been made these racist comments constantly.
She said this country was in danger of being swamped by Asians, mockingly wore a burqa.
As I said to you, I understand what the word racist means.
Africans coming to Australia had AIDS, being swamped by Muslims, called Islam a disease.
I will not retract what I've told Senator Faruqi.
How long do you have to be here and how much do you have to love this country before you're accepted? How long?
She's been unreal. Penny Wong has been so good because she's speaking to Faruqi. She has been incredible, Penny Wong, on this issue.
How long do you have to be here and how much do you have to love this country before you're accepted?
You've got to take your hat off to Penny Wong.
How long? How long do you have to be here and how much?
Not retract what I've told Senator Faruqi.
How long do you have to be here and how much do you have to love this country before you're accepted? How long?
Now, this man's a Muslim. He got himself into a little bit of a debacle, and now he's got her on. Now, I've always said these people are better off staying out of the media because they can't manage themselves.
Faruqi joins us now. Thanks very much for your time. You're taking on Senator Hanson's comments and you're taking them beyond the upper house to the Human Rights Commission. What are you hoping the outcome will be there?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I have made a complaint to the Human Rights Commission about the anti-migrant divisive tweet that Senator Pauline Hanson put out a couple of weeks ago. And the complaint is based on racial hatred and racial discrimination. I mean, at the very least, Waleed, I'm hoping for an outcome which holds Senator Hanson accountable and, forces her to face some consequences.
See, these people, they like to micro-incrementally undermine Australian Parliament, and then when they get pushed back, see what they'll do? They'll go to any length to get their way. They'll betray you.
But what sort of consequences can they impose?
As a start, an apology and a retraction of what she said. Yesterday we had a debate on the Greens motion, which was put up there to censure Senator Hanson for these very comments. And that motion didn't get up. It was watered down by the Liberals and the Labor government. I was terribly disappointed in that because racism needs to be called out and those perpetrators need to be held accountable. I mean, calling out is the first step. An apology, if Senator Hanson comes to that, might be symbolic, but it is a start of the process which says this is not okay and you can't keep doing things like this.
Well, she can't keep trying to siphon money out of the Australian government and send it to the Muslim Palestinian possible terrorist groups. Because in some way or another, indirectly, they're all connected.
You were disappointed, but were you surprised?
I was surprised because we have just been through a wholesale review of parliamentary work practices and culture, which is the Jenkins review, Rachel. So, yes, I was surprised that something as straightforward as calling out someone for racism could not be upheld by the Senate.
Senator, well done for calling out this kind of behaviour. It does need to be addressed. Do you worry, though, that by giving Senator Hanson this kind of oxygen, it benefits her career more than harms it? It seems we only hear about Senator Hanson often through this kind of stuff.
Peter, that kind of comes up quite a bit, whether these sorts of things give Senator Hanson oxygen. I guess my response to that would be that Senator Hanson already has a platform. She is in the federal Senate. She is a leader of a political party, and she has used that platform so many times. This has gone on for too long. And, I will do everything in my power to make sure that we tackle racism in this country.
Well, this has gone beyond politics. You and your family have received threats, abuse. Did you imagine it could get that bad after Hanson's tweet?
Kerry, I have now lived in Australia for more than 30 years. And as a professional engineer, I have worked in so many workplaces, in consulting, in universities, in local government. But nowhere have I experienced the marginalisation and, making me feel so small and invalidated as I do in this place that is the Senate. And as you said, it's not just me. What Senator Hanson put out there unleashed a barrage of emails, of letters, of...
That's right, because we're not we don't agree with the spirit of this woman. Right? She's for Palestine. She's not for Australia. And this is the woman that would have contributed to Fatima Payman leaving the Labor Party. Don't worry about that. She's had the wrong influence on that girl, on that young senator. Now she's at the mercy of the Muslims.
Of phone calls to my office and, of course, the comments on social media, which targeted me, but which, of course, had a huge impact on my team and my family.
Senator, I wasn't actually planning on asking you about this, but you mentioned the need to hold Parliament to the standards of the Jenkins review on bullying and so on in Parliament House. You'll know, of course, that the Greens are in the middle of a controversy about that right now because of Senator Lydia Thorpe, your colleague, being accused of treating an Indigenous elder in a meeting last year in Parliament House in a way that was extremely aggressive and amounted to something like bullying, and one of her former staffers writing a letter of apology and saying it's one of the worst things he's seen in his, not just in his career, but in his life. And yet the Greens are choosing to stand by her at this moment. And I gather it would be a very different response if it was, say, a Liberal politician at the middle of an allegation like this. If you want to stand for the Jenkins review and the standards of it, don't you have to apply that to your own side?
What a fantastic question from this reporter. Good on you, mate. And he's a Muslim too.
Waleed, after the Jenkins review, the Greens party room actually did a wholesale review of our complaints process and made it much stronger and more rigorous. And any complaints that come through will go through that process.
That's different from saying you're not going to comment on these live allegations.
We will have more things to say, but as you know, that there is a confidential staff matter involved in this, and it's not really appropriate for me to comment on that publicly.
No, because she's got herself into a mess, and now she's running double standards. Good question, mate. Double standards going on there. Well, oh dear. I hope you enjoyed that video. I just don't think these people are of the same constitutional interests of the normal Aussies.